Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we'll talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape. Excuse me, and how all these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, we'll talk about the desperate plot to draft Jonathan into 2027 race. Also, Amechi Hayatuddin accused Atiku of stealing ADC presidential ticket. And later on the show, Trump invests billions of dollars to crush Nigerian terrorists. In the course of the program, we take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. It's important to mention that we can only read comments with human names and the ones based on the subject matter. I have Jeremy Vazum, the maestro himself, who has been on the way to Akwa Ibom State, I believe. PKO, good to see you tonight.
Yeah, good to do this with you. It's painful that our club, Arsenal, didn't get the job done today.
Right.
But we'll be back. We'll be back stronger. We'll be back. Penalty is a lottery any day. So we take it on the chin. And I'm sure we'll be lucky next time.
Absolutely. You remain undaunted in the face of adversaries or adversities, rather. Okay, then let's get on to the brass tack. Talking about Goodluck Jonathan, there have been growing reports of consultations and behind-the-scenes political moves by some stakeholders who believe former President Goodluck Jonathan remains one of the few national figures capable of bringing or bridging Nigeria's widening political and regional divisions ahead of the 2027, particularly coming from the camp of the factional PDP members. Do you think this renewed push for Jonathan is genuinely about national stability and electoral viability, or is it more a reflection of the desperation of political actors who have failed to build alternative consensus candidates within their parties?
Neither. They have their agenda. They believe that Jonathan is one person who can defeat the president. They want to stop this president from being re-elected, and they will talk to as many people from southern Nigeria that they can talk to. You can see that in northern Nigeria is only Atiku Abubakar who is really keen on contesting the presidency. The bulk of the aspirants or candidates are from southern Nigeria. So they believe that the more southern candidates to join the race, the more difficult it is for President Tinubu to be able to do well in his southern base and ultimately win the election. They believe that if Atiku can rally the north and he gets tremendous votes from the north, he is going to win the election. Whereas President Tinubu would not overwhelming support from the south because there are so many candidates from southern Nigeria who are going to split his votes. Basically, this is how they are thinking. And by putting Jonathan in the mix, they want to pay President Tinubu back for what transpired in 2015. As far as they are concerned, two persons brought PDP down from power. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the late President Muhammadu Buhari. It was President Tinubu that went to Buhari to convince him to come into the race, knowing that Buhari coming into the race will be sure of at least 12 million votes. The bulk of these 12 million votes from the Northwest and a good chunk still coming from the Northeast. So they want to split his votes, and they believe they can use Goodluck Jonathan to do that. They believe that Goodluck Jonathan can even defeat the president. In fact, I heard somebody boasting that if Jonathan enters the race before 12 noon, the election will be over. And this is somebody who's based in the US. This was what he said on social media. So if you look at those who are trying to bring Jonathan into this race, by all means, people like Jerry Garner, people like Tanimu Turaki, they are people who had been in the PDP from the get-go. They haven't joined any other party. They are loyal to the party, and they do not see the Wike faction as a true PDP faction. They see it as a faction created to damage the PDP and make it unelectable. So these people worked with Jonathan. They are close to him, and they believe that it is their duty to bring him back to contest the presidency and even win it. But Jonathan, as far as I'm concerned, has not told anyone that he wants to contest. You can do affirmation for Jonathan in absentia, but even if you buy him a form, he has to sign. You cannot shave his head in his absence. And Jonathan has not told anyone that I know. And I have friends who work with him. I still have people who are very close to him. What they tell me is that Jonathan has not told anyone that he's interested in contesting. Because the problem is, where does he start from? The whole political landscape has changed rapidly between 2015 and now. They also tried to bring him back in 2023. That plot failed. This time around, they are trying to bring him again. And it is a faction of the PDP, the one that the court has not approved. That is the one whose convention was rendered a nullity by the Supreme Court. That is the faction led by Tanimu Turaki, who used to be a commissioner for special duty, a minister of special duties under Jonathan. These are people very close to Jonathan. So they believe that they can bring him into the race, and if they convince him to step into the race, he will win the election. This is how they are thinking. But Jonathan is not, his body language suggests that he is not interested.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we'll talk about
there has been ongoing
shape our political and national landscape.
That
and how all these
former President Goodluck Jonathan
I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, we'll talk about the desperate plots to
position of the President of Nigeria
into 2027 race.
In the coming election
Amechi accused Atiku of
one of the
factions presidential tickets
of the PDP.
And later in the show,
led by
Trump invests billions of dollars to crush Nigerian terrorists. Because of the program, we take your questions. But first, subscribe to our YouTube channel
people like
and drop
Professor
Jide comment section. It's important to mention that we can only read comments with human names and the ones based on the subject matter.
Babajide
Jide Otitoju, the maestro himself,
pointed out some things
on the way to Akwa State, I believe.
Trying to say that former President Goodluck Jonathan has not himself announced that he will be running in 2027, and that Even if they buy a form for him, he must sign it himself. Let's look critically and dissect the claims, the views of Babajide Otitoju.
I'm sure we'll be lucky.
Now, there are some things he said that we need to look into.
You remain undaunted.
Otitoju's core claim is essentially the political backstory that Tinubu himself confirmed through his own presidency's spokesperson. The Tinubu presidency insists he was the decisive force behind Buhari's 2015 emergence, having mobilized the APC governors and the Southwest delegates to win the APC primary in Buhari's favor at the Teslim Balogun Stadium in Lagos in 2014.
Do you think this renewed push for Jonathan is genuinely
Tinubu
about
supported
national
who commanded widespread following in northern Nigeria,
a reflection of the
initially wanted to become his vice presidential candidate, though he later considered to Yemi Osinbajo. In 2015, Buhari rode the APC to victory, ending the 16-year rule of the PDP and making the first time an incumbent Nigerian president lost to an opposition candidate. What this means in plain terms is that Tinubu engineered the coalition that removed Jonathan from power. He brought the Southwest votes, facilitated the party merger, and delivered the political structure that made the North-South alliance work. Jonathan and his allies have not forgotten this. The push to bring Jonathan back into the 2027 race is in large part a revenge mission, political payback, a decade in the making.
They believe that
Jonathan received 12,853,162 votes in 2015, but was defeated by Buhari, who polled 15,424,921. The election was significant as it marked the first time in Nigeria's history an incumbent president lost a re-election bid.
From the north, he is going to win the election.
Is APC genuinely threatened by Jonathan?
Whereas,
yes,
President Tinubu
and the evidence is in how they have reacted. The old political rule is simple. You don't attack someone you are not afraid of. The fear of Jonathan's candidacy has gripped the presidency and the APC so much that their reactions can best be described as hysterical and apoplectic. Reacting to statements from Jonathan's allies, Bayo Onanuga, President Tinubu's spokesperson, asserted that the Jonathan administration severely damaged the economy, ran the economy aground, and put the country in dire straits. That is a preemptive strike, not a confident dismissal. A day hardly passes without an APC leader or loyalist pouring scorn on Jonathan's speculative comeback bid. And this is a preemptive attack born out of panic about Jonathan entering the 2027 race. Otitoju's analysis on the vote splitting strategy is also credible, and the APC understands this threat. With multiple northern candidates, Peter Obi, Rotimi Amechi, and others potentially in the mix.
The election will be
Peter Obi, Rotimi Amechi, and others potentially in the mix.
This was what
Tinubu's Southwest base is vulnerable to fragmentation. Adding Jonathan, who carries deep sympathy in the South-South and parts of the Southeast, specifically targets the regional-based Tinubu needs.
They are people who have
adding Jonathan, who carries deep sympathy in the South-South and parts of the Southeast, specifically targets regional-based Tinubu needs.
And
now, can Jonathan actually win if he runs?
The Wike faction
can he win if he runs?
PDP.
Jonathan's appeal lies not just in nostalgia, but in political arithmetic. He is constitutionally eligible for only one term, a factor that could make him more palatable to northern power brokers, weary of long-term southern dominance. With the APC government struggling under economic hardship, insecurity, and disunity, many Nigerians now look back at his tenure with softer eyes, reimagining him as a steady hand who left office without plunging the country into chaos. Jonathan's concession in 2015 still gives him credibility with voters tired of do-or-die politics. His political strength includes the South-South, Bayelsa, Rivers, Delta, and Akwa Ibom, where he is still seen as their son.
That I know.
A block of roughly 1.5 to 2 million votes that matters in a tight race.
To him. What they tell me is that Jonathan,
but there are also structural weaknesses that Jonathan has. He has no active political structure.
Where does he start from?
He hasn't been running a party structure since 2015. Head-to-head, most analysts say Tinubu wins 60-40.
They also tried to bring him
but with a united opposition and an APC split, Jonathan can win 55-45%.
Bring him again.
55 over 45. His best role may be as a consensus candidate who forces a runoff rather than an outright winner. Additionally, Otitoju's most important observation is this. Jonathan himself has not confirmed he wants to run. You can build momentum for a man, but as Otitoju wisely said, you cannot shave his head in his absence. Vanguard reported that although Jonathan merely told groups calling on him to run that he would consult widely, there are indications he may have made up his mind, hoping to convince Nigerians to re-elect him to revamp the economy and reduce hardship. That said, this remains insider leaks, not a formal declaration. There is also a critical legal and party platform question. Which faction of PDP feeds him, and whether that faction is the court-recognized one, matters enormously for ballot access.
Actions of those who shape our political and national landscape.
Now, can Jonathan bring relief to Nigeria's pain and suffering?
I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, we'll talk about
supporters point to relatively stable conditions during his presidency. When a bag of rice cost around 7,800 compared to 80 to 100,000 today, and highly youth empowerment programs like You-Win and Sure
Because of the program, we take your questions.
However, critics strongly dispute this romanticized view of the Jonathan era, citing his administration's handling of security challenges, particularly the Chibok girls kidnapping and other Boko Haram atrocities, arguing that while subsequent administrations have performed poorly, this doesn't validate Jonathan's previous record.
It's painful that our club.
Let's look at the honest picture. The honest picture.
Get the job done today.
There are things Jonathan did well, some of which are macroeconomic relative stability, a more relaxed political atmosphere, respect for the democratic process. That is his concession. His concession in 2015 remains his greatest political legacy and functional institutions compared to what came before and after.
Right. Let's get on to the brass tack. Talking about Goodluck Jonathan,
Jonathan also did few things poorly.
Reports of consultations and
Boko Haram was allowed to metastasize on his watch. Corruption within his government was substantial. The missing $20 billion oil revenue scandal during former CBN governor Lamido Sanusi's tenure never received a satisfying resolution. His administration was seen as weak and reactive on security.
Jonathan is genuinely about nationally
the nostalgia trap.
And electoral viability.
Less than 8 months to the next elections, Insecurity and deteriorating living conditions have thrown Nigerians into a valley of despair and hopelessness, with food prices shooting through the roof. In such an environment, any former leader looks better in hindsight. That is a psychological phenomenon, not a policy endorsement.
Jonathan is one person who can
the deeper truth is that Nigeria's structural problems, oil dependency, infrastructure deficit, security crisis in the north and middle belt, ethnic and regional tensions predate Jonathan, Buhari, and Tinubu alike. No individual president, regardless of their goodwill or competence, has been able to break those chains without the kind of institutional and systemic reform that no administration has yet been willing to pursue seriously.
The bulk of the aspirants or candidates are from southern Nigeria.
Otitoju's analysis is fundamentally correct on the political mechanics. This is less about Jonathan, the man, this is less about Jonathan, the man, and more about a coalition of actors who see him as the most deployable weapon to stop Tinubu's re-election. The strategy: split southern votes, let Atiku consolidate the north, use Jonathan to peel away south-south and parts of southeast from Tinubu is rational on paper, but it faces three hard obstacles: Jonathan's own reluctance, his lack of a live political structure, and the question of whether Nigerians vote on nostalgia or on a concrete vision for tomorrow. Support groups argue Jonathan possesses the experience and temperament needed to stabilize the country, and that his leadership style reflected humility, respect for the rule of law, and dedication to democratic values. Whether that narrative survives a brutal campaign against Tinubu's resources and incumbency machinery is another matter entirely. The 2027 election will ultimately be decided not by who wants to use Jonathan, but by whether Nigerians are suffering enough to vote against the status quo, and whether the opposition can unite around a single credible alternative rather than fragment into irrelevance. Thank you for listening. Get right into the comment section. Share your views, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you, and please, once again, please subscribe. Thank you.